and that's his turn. So that's a bonus action that he can take.
This Chinese street artist isn't drawing his female customer. He's drawing
Hello, folks. This is Founder Laerun with Fantasy Grounds College, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about Candlekeep and potential of getting or importing even new content that will supplement or add to the scheduled release for tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure when the Fantasy Grounds copy will be available, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be available probably around by noon tomorrow. I mean, I can't see it being any later than that unless they had a problem or something. So right now I have the Fantasy Grounds Unity up and running. If you're curious what this theme is, this is like the Wizard's Library or the Wizard's Book. It is a theme that you have to pay for, or if you have the Fantasy Grounds art subscription, this will be included in it. It's pretty nice. I thought it was fitting for Candlekeep. This is something I did a little research on this morning, and I'd like to show you some of the products that are out there that are already growing up around the setting. So I want to mention a few things about the Fantasy Grounds version that I think is unique to other versions. So you're going to have a D&D Beyond version, which gives you quick access. You can copy and paste the data into Fantasy Grounds if you have that content. You have Roll20 and you have other digital means to get the content. But I really think that Fantasy Grounds offers you a unique way to interface with the actual data. So having little pop-up windows with artwork and having the drag and drop features is very, very, very useful. I think that I'm going to show you some content that you may or may not know about already. A lot of this is from the DM's Guild. I have links ready to go, so when I finish the video, I'll link those to the video. But mainly, Candlekeep is basically a big library. If you guys remember from the old Baldur's Gate, it was one of the locations that you start from. So I'm going to bring up an image here. This image is a really nice map of Candlekeep. This was purchased on the DM's Guild. I don't see it as being necessarily something you would necessarily share with your party, although it has a numbered key on the side and there's some numbers on here, so maybe you can use it as DM's reference. If you wanted to, you could probably go in and cover those up because they give you a really high quality map version of this. So if you look at this here, this is basically what you're given for the actual content. So it's a really nice map that comes with a quick question in Fantasy. How do I make custom content? Good question. So custom content would be like tokens, maps, images. So if you are going to download anything or use something that you're making from, like, let's say Adobe Photoshop, or maybe you have content that you already have somewhere else, like maps, in Unity, you can import things, or you can actually go into the Unity interface. And if you bring up a blank map, you can use brushes and all kinds of art assets that come with Fantasy Grounds, provided that you've purchased them or you have an art subscription. But I'm not going to cover, importing and creating content at this point. However, I have done other videos previously that talks about that and shows a little bit more of that. But for the most part, you can bring in your own content. There's an asset library, and then you go to images, and then you click on this folder button and it brings up the back end where you store everything. So in this case, I have some photos here, and then I brought in some maps that are related. So this is how you would bring them in. And then once you're done, you hit the refresh button and it'll update the content in your folder so that it'll show the campaign folder at that point, and it will show the content. And if you want to see like a preview, you could click on that. And you can either set this as a background decal, or you can create an image record, which will put it in your images and maps area. And I made my own group here, so I can put all my excess or extra maps in there. So I hope that helps a little bit. But yeah, I'm not going to cover how to create assets and all that. That's more or less a different show. For the most part, though, we're going to talk about stuff that's already created. And there are some things that you can do to supplement what you already have. I imagine when the setting drops tomorrow, you'll have plenty of stuff to work with. But when you use Fantasy Grounds and you have this extra content that you can get from the DM's Guild, or even creating your own content, it makes the game a lot more immersive and fun, and it also gives you more things to draw upon when you're running a campaign. So that's basically the kind of things we're going to go over. And just to let you know, this is not the Candlekeep module. That's not coming out till tomorrow or late tonight. So I want to let you know that, again, this is from the DM's Guild. I went ahead and put in some effects on here, some rain on here. I don't know if you guys can hear the rain in the background. I put some background noise in there. But this is a really cool map that you can get off the DM's Guild. It's really beautiful. It's colorful. I think it would be better for show and tell, and it has a nice cutaway view of where the underground is. So that's kind of cool too. So I'm going to close that, and we'll talk a little bit about Candlekeep mysteries. We'll see what kind of things that we can come up with here. So when you have the Candlekeep, there are some things that you want to keep in mind of what it is. So Candlekeep is pretty much an adventure compilation. It has a bunch of maybe 12 or 13 different adventures written by DM's Guild authors. And Chris Lindsay challenged them to make content, and then he brought all that content in and kind of put it together as a compilation. So there's a framework here where you have Candlekeep, but then you have these 13 mysteries. And you're going to go into this place that's like a community. It's a library, an adventure hub, and the book itself is like a collection of adventures from the DM's Guild. So it's kind of a pretty cool idea. I'm glad they did that. It has a community appeal because it's created by people like us. There are people that spend a little bit more time on editing and creating content, and they submit content on the DM's Guild. And from there, Wizards of the Coast will pick people that they like, or that they think are talented, and they'll include them in upcoming content. So if you really want to get into the business, this is a good way to do it, is through the DM's Guild. They can see your talent. It kind of it's like a resume that speaks for itself. Now, I'm not guaranteeing you're going to get a job on there, but if you're talented enough and you have the right things going on for you, it will definitely be something that you want to look into. So I have it in my library. I just have the SRD loaded, and then I have 2 supplements that I got off the DM's Guild. Both of these were put out by Grimm Press, but I know Rob 2E has stuff, and there's other authors that have put out things that I'll mention later. But for the most part, you're going to get, there's encounters in Candlekeep. Obviously, it's probably encounters. And then there's Mordenkainen's Candlekeep collection. These are both already in Fantasy Grounds content format, so I'll put that also in the links when we get to that. But when you use this content, it's supplemental to whatever you already have or what you're going to get. So if you go to let's see, I'm going to go to Mordenkainen's Candlekeep collection. This was gifted to me by Lady Shell. Thank you. But she insisted I have this, and she said maybe if you can use this at some point. So I'm using it. So basically, there's a lot of supplements that are out there that kind of help with the product releases. So they have a lot of things that come out. So this particular module is the Mordenkainen's Collectibles, and I click on the reference manual, and that's what this is. So this is a collection of new spells. There's some magic items. There are some other works of, like written works in here that are helpful. There's also a kind of like a guild and a background to be a seeker, which is someone that's involved with the library and with the actual. It's like a guild in a sense. And then Mordenkainen goes and does a lot of different things, for himself. He doesn't have time to hunt down artifacts and such. So the seekers probably go about, and it says they'll do their they'll do his work if needed, if they get hired by him. So this is kind of a way to make these things more useful to you. So in the actual content itself, you have magic items, you have spell books, and there's all kinds of really cool content in here that makes having and owning a different product on top of what you already have is really cool. So there's some player options here. You have the Barbarian, which is the path of the Arachno Rager. You have the Seeker Domain, which is for clerics. You have the Fighter option, which is a Renaissance Warrior. And for the Pale Master, you have the Elegy of Hedons. So those are just some of the content that's in here. So it's not just lore and text. There's actual options for different classes and such. So it's pretty cool. Now you have some cantrips, some spells that they've added in some of these master lists for the Pale Master. This is his spell book, I imagine. There's library stuff, and there's some tables with books. So if you go on to the tables in here, and you can roll on these rollable tables to generate whatever content is available. So if you can use these tables randomly, or there's a master table where you can roll on a master table. And so if you roll this into the chat, or if you roll it, it'll go into the chat and it will roll which books you have, and it gives you the titles and such. So it's kind of a cool way to use the content. And then there's all kinds of stories and stuff behind it. And then, not to mention, I mean, we went through the spells, and you have some sorcery related things. Like here's some chapters in here that talk about different things related to sorcery. And then you have your library archetypes, which I've already told you about. And then the basically this is a really nice supplemental book that helps you bring in new or fresh content if you've already used the adventure itself. You've already went through them all. You have more stuff to add to it. There is a paladin here that is considered a friend. There's a friends or foes area, and then here's another NPC. This is Madeline Bridger. She's already statted out and ready to play. So there's some personalities in here that you might be able to use during the adventure. And then you have the backstabbing Kenku. And then, of course, it has the NPC stat block. It has another NPC that would probably be his ally, because it's called the backstabbing Kenku. And then there's also the image that you get with it. So it's pretty cool. So it's got full artwork. It's not just a bunch of text or stories or some stuff that you can add and supplement to your game. And that's mainly what the kind of things we're covering today. Let's see. Grim Press has a GM's Day Fantasy Ground module bundle that is still on sale. That I saw that. That's pretty cool. Yep. And that's kind of what I'm going through, is some of that content. The next thing is encounters in Candlekeep. So I'll close this, close that, close this. And this is another type of book that's going to give you, obviously, some encounters. So there's all kinds of different adventure paths here for the adventures that you might take in a given session. So this is basically a background. It's like a story hook. You have some NPCs that are tied to it and tables, and so it's a way to supplement for maybe just a one-shot or in-between adventures, whatever you want to use it for. It helps you round out your content for Candlekeep. There's some other things that you can do also other than just purchasing DM's Guild books, but I will make sure that I put those in the reference for when I actually archive this. So the other thing is Chris Lindsay did a video recently that talks about Candlekeep. There's a map pack that was put out by CZ Maps. They also have a Patreon that they're on there. I looked at the maps. They look pretty good. So if I go to images and then I go down to any of these like you have different things, like here's a bedroom or a guest room. There's all kinds of maps that have already been created for the keep itself. It says it's pretty accurate to the real map in the adventure. So a lot of this stuff can probably be substitute out some of the maps they give you, or maybe you can use them in addition to. So for instance, here's a Candlekeep at the gates encounter. You have this rainstorm going on and some clouds. You got the rain bouncing off the walls there. So you could easily use something like this in your adventures to help supplement whatever you're doing. Technically, you usually go here, get quests, rest, you have resources, and then you go out and adventure and use all the maps that come with the adventure. But if you need something more specific or inside of Fantasy Grounds, it's good to get a bunch of additional maps if you can and put them into Fantasy Grounds, put a grid on them, and maybe a couple effects, or if you want to put line of sight on there, you can. And that would be a good way to round out your library. So I have a bunch of supplemental stuff, and then I have things off the DM's Guild. And that's kind of what we're explaining here, is we're showing different things that may or may not help you. So like, for instance, here's a vault that's basically lit up. There's no grid on it, so you don't have to worry about lining up the painted grid. And if you bring this content in, and I'm going to go ahead and expand it, it's a pretty nice looking photo here. So the maps aren't bad at all, and they have a little bit of outside stuff, so it's not just a map. And as you can see, if you come through here, there's a door that leads out. It probably leads to the Underdark or the sea caves under. So there's a door up here, and then it looks like some podiums that have some different lore books on there. And then if you go down to the south, there is another door, and then here's a cliff. So it probably looks over depending on how deep it is. So if you looked at that cross-section map I showed earlier, it's probably one of those locations, like the Undercroft or the vault or the basement, basically. So you can throw a grid on here. So I'm going to go to grid, and I'm just going to go with 50 by 50 for now, because I don't know the actual pixels per inch. So I'm going to go ahead and make it visible. And as you can see, this looks a little bit too big. I don't think this door is 20 feet wide. So I'm going to go with 60 and see how that looks. That might be a little bit more useful as far as size and getting everything lined up. So that's pretty close. So maybe 75 or anywhere in there. So I don't see this door being 15 feet wide is kind of what I'm getting at. So maybe if I go to 75, it'll actually be a lot better. Yeah, so we're getting closer to maybe 100 even. But as long as you keep the scale of the map low, because this is kind of a big map. So that could also be part of the reason why. But anyhow, so throw a grid on it and use it in your adventures. It's really not too bad. You don't have to have all that fancy line of sight if you don't want to. So if you just want to run it and just play, this is what all you have to do technically. So there we go. So it's 100 pixels. So that's pretty decent. That makes sense. All right. So that's basically one of the maps that you get for the map pack. So that was, let's see, this was it was basically the CZ maps, the Candlekeep premium map pack. So not that expensive. And then I got this big lore piece from, I think it was from the DM's Guild as well. It was basically like an art piece. So I have some art here in the background that I've used, and this is for if you want to like add artwork to your background. So you do that when you preview your image, you can actually pull that up and assign a background for this. So here's the image that I put together. So I found this logo. I paid for that on the DM's Guild. This artwork is part of the module. I'm not sure about this piece, but I see it all over, so it might be part of the module. This piece here, if you remember Baldur's Gate 1, this is kind of some nostalgic pictures here. So this is actually Candlekeep from Baldur's Gate 1. This is one of the places that you go to after you leave Baldur's Gate, or you start here actually. You go around and do some quests, and then you leave and head on out. So this is your starting location for Baldur's Gate 1. I guess you were Gorion's student, and then you leave this area and go on your adventure. So this is kind of nostalgic. And ultimately, this place is a library. So when you're creating content for this particular rules for the setting, you want to create a memorable, thing or a memorable adventure for your players. So I would honestly go on the DM's Guild, pick up some of the other stuff, because there's a lot of good stuff. So it comes with adaptable NPCs as well, which is also Nerd Immersion YouTube channel has 10% off code for the GM's Guide content. Yeah, that's great. So you hate the pre-printed grids on the map. Yeah, some of those are just not really good. Yeah, Chris Perkins. Okay, got it. So basically, this content here will supplement what you already have or what you will have when you actually get the adventure. There's some stuff I found on the DM's Guild, so I'm going to go into my hard drive here. Here's all the maps that I acquired that come in that bundle. So there's quite a few of them. They're high resolution. They're 2048 by 1536, so they're pushing the limit there on size. So here's the maps, and a lot of these are pretty sized for other platforms, but it's right at the 2048 by 2048, so it's at the maximum. And it also has different versions, like a day and night, and then it also has grid and gridless. So these are pretty nice little supplemental maps. The Candlekeep map pack is pretty decent. This other map, this big, beautiful colored map, is from a different product, but it is nice. I think it came with one of the Candlekeep modules that I purchased. So another thing I do is, like, I have a social media folder, I have a miscellaneous, I have some PDFs that are related, I have the artwork, and then the map pack is going to go in the artwork. So to keep your stuff organized, so when you're finding content for this setting, make a folder and put all your stuff in there and organize it. It makes it so much easier later on. I don't know how many people have so many scattered files, and then they have to go back and try to find it. That's a lot of work. So I made some social media posters with this. I took some of the art assets that I found earlier, and I made a little flyer for it. And then, again, this is the photo I had inside the module. So you can make your own content and import it. I just kind of use these for the show. Also, I could have used images from the DM's Guild and created it so that when you click on the link, it would go straight to the DM's Guild. So those are things you can do. So if I go into Fantasy Grounds and I bring up my show notes, and I have a run list, and I have my notes from Chris Perkins' show today, and then I have like a run list that has my reviews. And if you click on the links, that you basically put them in the chat area and hit enter, and then you can drag the link into a story entry. So here's Elminster Candlekeep's companion. So if I click on that, it goes right to it. So this is just a convenient way to make links available for you and your players right within the interface. So you find the URL, you put it in the chat, hit enter, it creates a link, then you drag and drop it onto your story entry or your notes, and then you retitle it so it looks nice and clean. And one other thing I wanted to show you was this really old website that's still going. This is called Candlekeep.com. It's been around for 20 years. It has a lot of cool lore, so if you're somebody that really likes lore and stories and community content, they have these Candlekeep compendiums. They're PDFs, they're free, you can download them. They're full of art and stories. I actually reached out to the domain holder of that particular content, and I asked them if I could potentially convert it or get someone to convert it over to Fantasy Grounds or at least VTT content. So what I'm talking about is there's these volumes if you guys haven't seen these before. Some of them are old, some are fairly new. So I'm going to go to my PDF library. And if I go to view the extra large covers, these items here are also other content that you may want to consider converting. One is 101 books to gain entry into Candlekeep. So if you know the lore about Candlekeep, this supplement here has like a table and a brief description of what kind of books are in here. And it goes through all these different books, and you can make a table out of this and create content for your table. So it wasn't much to it. It was just a big list. There's another one called Candlekeep Colleagues, which I don't know if anyone's converting this yet, but you could take the NPCs out of here, and it even has some, different things to direct you. So here's Creamius, the Spore Librarian. Gives you his personality, some plot hooks. There's Cutbeard, used books and other goods. So this is an old dude, like an old dwarven dude that basically sells books and such. So there's a bunch of NPCs in here, and the way they have it set up, you'd have to, of course, enter the stuff manually. Yeah, it looks like these are actually pictures, so it's not actual text. So it's going to be hard to build anything off this. You'd have to basically ask the author to convert it. Maybe they'll give you the actual text files. But this one would be more difficult to convert. So there's content out there. Here's another Candlekeep Codex. This has more books in it. And it's just a matter of, what do you need? What do you want to use? How much content do you really need? That sort of thing. So yeah, it looks like, they made this so that's Colleagues. So I don't know. Anyway, so they have some stuff. And then there's an older module that was put out before 5th edition was fully released. It's for 2nd level characters. It's part of the Sundering, so this would have happened before a lot of the events that happened currently. And then if you go through here, it's part of the D&D Next playtest. But it is a module. I mean, you can basically figure out where you want to plug it into your story. There's the setup. It gives you, all the different... In this one, yeah, you can copy the text in this one. So this is an older module that you can use to kind of add on to your adventures if you're so willing, or you know what you're doing as far as entering. There's another library table, and this one has the title, the author, and then when you go into it, it gives you a little idea of what's in the book, which I like that. It's not just a bunch of titles, so that's pretty cool. So these are things that you should probably think about entering or putting in your library. If you go to Candlekeep, it is ultimately a library, just so you know that. So there are all the Candlekeep compendiums. So Volume 1, this comes from the website I was showing you earlier. It's 42 pages. Some of it is just, you can do it. Most of these are text. And they contain a lot of different stories and lore that have been collected over the years. Yeah, some of these are just photos, so that wouldn't be helpful. Yeah, but nonetheless, there's a lot of lore here. You can probably just make these story entries if you want it, or images if you want. But I think it would be fun to try to get permission and work with these people that created the content and turn these into library books that actually belong in the Candlekeep. So that's just some ideas for you guys to aspire to. So this is some content that I've just collected, from online or free. Lady Shell gifted me a couple. So there's things that you can do to help supplement your game. So here's the art folder. So I went in, and these are some of the art pieces that I've collected. And again, I have all my maps in one folder. And then I put all that into Fantasy Grounds as well, so that I can have access to it. So that's basically the majority of what I wanted to cover. If there's any questions about about the upcoming setting, I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that it should be available and coming out soon. There are some different formats, so if you have D&D Beyond, I think you might get it a little sooner than everyone else. I'm not sure, but I know traditionally that, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but usually if it's ready to go, the module, Smiteworks is allowed to release it at midnight Eastern time. So if you live in the on the Pacific coast or even in the mountain time, you might have an hour or two to look at it before you go to bed. There's some, of course you'll have to download and update your content, but I'm sure it'll be fun to look through. Like I said, it's an anthology of adventures, but it's also a location hub, so you can start off other adventures here. Like I said, you can create your own content, import content, or create or buy some stuff on the DM's Guild to supplement your adventures. And this holds true of all or most settings that are already out there. If you pay attention to Lore You Should Know, and you listen to the D&D podcasts, and then you actually look at the DM's Guild, you'll kind of be able to tell what's coming up. I mean, before they even announce the Strahd campaign book that's coming out this summer, the Van Richten's Guide to Barovia or whatever it's called, there's already putting out content for that setting. So there's, it's really no big secret what the content's going to be. You might not know the title, but you're going to know a gist of what they're putting out. So just to summarize, in my library, I went to modules, and I searched for Candlekeep. And then I activated these books, which is what I got from the DM's Guild. So if you buy anything from the DM's Guild, you put it in your modules folder, then you reload Fantasy Grounds. If you're already in it, you have to shut it down, start it back up, and then come to the library, activate the books, and then they'll be in your library for you to use. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of new NPCs, which is great. There's things that you can work with, like there's an Archmage. And even though it doesn't have a fancy token, you have the stat block ready to go. So this is a fairly high level mage here. The other is, you have spells that come with these books that have different functions, and they can help you with your campaign. There's tables that you can use. There's just all kinds of good content that will help you with your story. So it's not just images, maps, and a couple story entries. So there's a lot more to these products. And then this one, of course, has story items here, and then it talks about the Seekers. So the Seekers of the Candlekeep is something that it's like an organization. Seekers will basically want to go out, and they have to donate a tome or a unique work of written word. So it could be a poem or a story or some kind of lore. But the Seeker is a way that people have to learn how to come and go from Candlekeep without paying for their entry every time. So it's a way to get around the entry fee. So part of their function is to collect lore and bring it into the keep. So you could join the Seekers. They're kind of like monks. There's some benefits. And an Avowed Seeker is basically like a monk of Candlekeep. They call themselves the Avowed. And sometimes those Avowed get an itch for the road, and they want the rough and tumble of the traveling life. So they might join a group and go on a quest to find something new and interesting to add to their library. So that's a really cool way to kind of supplement an NPC or even a sidekick or even a player that's just going to play for a couple sessions. So we did some really good content that's being put out by our community and by the people that are interested in this sort of thing. Smiteworks may be a little gun shy after leaking. Yeah, that could be. That's very true. Yeah, they had a little bit of probably kickback. I don't remember, but I do recall that one other platform had jumped the gun It was, I think it was D&D Beyond or Roll20. And I asked Doug, I said, is this right? I mean, I thought it was supposed to be, available for everybody at the same time. So he must have said something to somebody up the chain, but they basically took it down. So they had to wait just like everyone else. But they had it on sale and available on their website before anybody else did. And I didn't know if there was an exclusive contract or not, but from what I had heard, it was, not going to be made available until midnight. So they already had it up hours before. So I don't know. But yeah, it could be that they'll wait till tomorrow. Who knows? But I don't think you have to rush into this anyways. I think with the DM's Guild content, you have enough stuff here as it is just to play in this setting. So you have maps, you have images, you have stories, NPCs. So even if you didn't have the Candlekeep Mysteries content, you still have all this stuff around it. So I think that's a cool thing that the DM's Guild and our community provides for us. So I want to say thanks to Lady Shell for donating the book or the gift certificate. I want to say thanks to Rob Tui for putting out the coding effects and making this community a lot more interesting, and also Grim Press for putting out some nice quality products, especially the ones that are related to the content. And also I want to say thanks to Smiteworks for putting out a cool platform. And I also ultimately want to say thanks to all our volunteers in Fantasy Grounds College for making that happen. And of course, thanks to all of you for watching and for helping us grow our channel and also making this a worthy endeavor. I apologize if I'm not covering other rule sets. This happens to be a product-specific release, although some of the maps and the supplements that I showed earlier, like the assets, those might be useful to you in Pathfinder, Pathfinder 2, or perhaps Hellfrost in the Savage World setting. But as far as the actual lore and the modules and such, maybe not so much. But anyhow, you guys have a good afternoon, and I will see you guys around. And